Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our 2 newly released books, Football: A Love Story and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books. Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, here with Teron Davenport, and we're at the 2016 Reese's Senior Bowl, and this is day 2, Teron, practice number 3 for the North squad. We're going to take a look at the recap from today, starting with the quarterback position. I actually thought guys like Cody Kessler and Jeff Driscoll threw the football very well. I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far out of those two from the North squad. What about you?
Yeah, I think Carson Wentz was really the one that impressed me. Obviously, he's the mystery man, so getting an opportunity to see him is really important for guys like us who want to get a take. You know, there's all these hot takes about him being a top 5 pick. I don't necessarily know if I believe in that, but one thing I did like was the way he was able to push the ball outside the numbers. That was something that he really showed. He had a nice touch on a deep pass. Unfortunately, it was dropped by the receiver in one-on-ones.
Yeah, he did a great job in 7-on-7, and also I thought team drills throwing the football like you mentioned. Looking in the backfield, which running back stood out to you the most today?
Well, I'm going to smile because I really like Tyler Irvin. He's been a prospect that, you know, I got to see live, and he really stood out. You know, he showed that despite the questions about his size, he showed the willingness to run inside the tackle. And then he had the nice play where he had to track it over his opposite shoulder, and he dove and caught the football. I think that was one of the highlights, and I think he really did a good job in practice today.
I actually agree with you on this one because he did show the ability to catch the football very well, both, like you said, out of the backfield, downfield, in the flat, making different moves to try to catch the football, to adjust to it. I thought he did well. Now going to your position, the receiver position, I thought this was a solid day so far for the receivers on the North squad. Who stood out to you in particular?
Well, there were a couple guys. I mean, Braxton Miller obviously is creating a lot of buzz. A couple areas where he could improve, but I think the guy really has to be the young man out of Cincinnati, Chris Moore, and he's a guy that I knew nothing about, but he definitely popped out, and he's someone that was able to consistently get open. He caught a couple nice deep balls, so he would be the one if I had to pick a receiver that stood out today. I
agree with you again because Moore is tough because you can't really recognize who he is. You have to constantly find yourself looking at the roster because the helmet is a little different. I think I've never seen that helmet from Cincinnati coming from the Bearcats. And Chris Moore, again, 1-on-1s, 7-on-7, team drills. He's doing a great job, even in the individuals, getting in and out of his breaks. I think he looks real well. Tight ends stood out in particular to you?
There weren't really any tight ends. Honestly, there weren't really any. You know, I don't want to press and pick somebody. There wasn't anybody.
Yeah, it was a tough day for the tight ends because I thought the secondary, most in particular, Tavon Young, did a great job in manning up versus tight ends, and guys got really physical with the inline players, so they didn't really have anyone today that stood out. They did a yeoman's job, you know, blocking and also catching individual, but overall, no one stood out in particular. Offensive line, where are you going?
Offensive line, you know, that's an interesting one. I'm going to have to go with Jason Spriggs. I think that he was someone that I wanted to see if he could play left tackle, and that's what he came in and did. You know, obviously he played a lot of right tackle at Indiana, but he came in and he showed that he could play left tackle. He did a good job in one-on-ones and inside, so he would be the guy I would pick up.
I look at Cole Toner out of Harvard. I always say if Harvard and the rest of the Ivy League decide to go up to the FBS level, they can compete right away. Toner is a guy that stood out because he looks as if he belongs, and that's something that you also mentioned about Joe Haig from North Dakota State, another guy that stood out today. He only played half of the practice. I think he was set out. I don't know if it was because of an injury, but we didn't see him too much in the second part of practice. But Cole Toner, in one-on-ones, I thought he held his own from a strength standpoint. You couldn't push him back into the quarterback. And in team drills, I thought he did a great job in firing off the football and did well on both ends, pass pro and run blocking. So the fact that an Ivy League guy can come in and hold his own, stand up and compete, I was impressed. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, defensive line, we talked about this a lot, but which guy stood out to you the most?
Well, I'm going to go with the young man out of Utah, Jason Faneka. He stood out to me, especially on the one play where he was able to hustle and track down Tyler Irvin on the sideline. I think that really showed hustle, and that's what you want to see out of a defensive lineman. You want to see that high motor. So he would be the one for me.
I look at Sheldon Day out of Notre Dame. We've seen a lot of him. We were at the Temple Notre Dame game. Day drops back in coverage. He does a lot for that defense, and you saw quickness off the football. I remember talking to Brandon Howard of Sports Talk Florida, and you seeing him disrupt plays constantly, blowing up the pulling guards and making a play in the backfield. Day's quickness and athleticism was definitely on display. Now, the linebacker position, when you have active defensive linemen, your linebackers will have a great day. Who on the North squad did a great job to you in this day 3 practice?
Well, just from
day 2, I'm sorry.
Just from the beginning to the end, I think Tyler Matakevich, it's no secret, you know, he's a prospect I'm very high on. But I went down and was watching him in the individual drills, and he consistently drew praise from the Cowboys coaching staff. Multiple times they said, hey, you know, that's the best rep, and he did a really good job of working on shedding blocks and just dropping back and breaking to the football. So he would be the guy. Then even during team, you know, he was able to find the football a couple times and deliver a couple thump hits. So he would be the one for me. How about you?
I go out west. I look at Blake Martinez from Stanford. I thought he did a great job in filling versus the run. Not the fastest sideline to sideline, but he seemed to find his way to the football. And on inside drill, I thought he did a great job competing down and down out whenever he got his number called. I thought he did a great job competing in that aspect. Now, in the secondary, a lot to look at today. Guys were competing hard one-on-one in the cold, in the rain, slippery conditions in that morning practice. Who stood out to you the most?
Well, there were a couple guys. You mentioned earlier about how the DBs were physical with the tight ends, and you know, they flexed the tight end a couple times, and Tavon Young was lined up with him, and he held his own. So he's somebody. But I think the one that really stood out, and he showed himself, and we kind of talked about this during practice, Eric Murray out of Minnesota. He was a guy that had all of us saying, who's number 31, and checking that to see who he was. Very feisty, you know, consistently in position. He got beat a couple times, but I just like the way that he fought with the receivers in their routes.
And that's what you want to see from a defensive back. New play, new slate, short memory. He did a great job every rep, one-on-one, 7-on-7s. He was probably the most physical out the bunch. I agree with you. He had a great day overall in every drill he had to run. Tavon Young also did a great job in the, I would say, the wide receiver, defensive back rerouting drills. When you're so patient with your punch and it's accurate every time, the receiver can't shake you off the line. He excelled in that area. So that's a wrap on the East squad. I mean, sorry, the North squad for the 2016 Reese's Senior Bowl. Check back on our website at footballgameplan.com/draft as we'll recap the South practice.